So I got really good at communicating and marketing. I wasn't great at operations. I wasn't great at leadership. And so in 2018, Gene, I scaled the business to 243 monthly retainer clients for my agency in 18 months. So, it's that dream that everybody has where you're just like, it's a lot of freaking clients, right? As you talk a lot about culture and leadership. It's what I found is building a company that fast and not understanding how to build culture is that culture, it is there and it grows but if you're not intentionally building it, then it'll come, and all it takes is for one negative person to come in. They say like one sour apple will make the whole freaking bag of apples rotten. And
Welcome to Grow Think Tank. This is the one and only place where you will get insight from the founders and the CEOs of the fastest growing privately held companies. I am the host. My name is Gene Hammett. I help leaders and their teams navigate the defining moments of their growth. Are you ready to grow?
Today we talk about rebuilding from crisis. And when you do that, you're going to realize that your leadership has to change. In fact, if I'm really blunt with you, rebuilding from crisis requires you to put people first. Today's special guest is Timothy Dodd. Timothy is with Pima.io. They are a outbound company. They do lead generation. They do scaling sales teams. And he went through a tough time that had to be something where he changed his style of leadership, and he had to focus on some of the foundational elements of the culture that he was missing as the company was scaling the first time. And so rebuilding from crisis is something we've probably all done. I know I have. We have to be willing to grow. He got some insight from coaches and from mentors, and that's exactly what I would recommend for you. If you are in a space where you are not getting the results you want, you're not exactly sure what to do next, then I would actually offer myself up as a chance for you to have a conversation with someone that's outside your world, outside your emotional bubble, if you will, and maybe even outside your industry to give a conversation about this. Now, I've worked with a lot of different industries, so I come with a lot of expertise. But if you're facing some headwinds and some challenges and you're listening to this episode, then I'm offering you a life preserver, at least a chance to have a conversation to get more clear and prioritize what's next. And when you know that, I would imagine you can execute at a higher level. Now, I will lay out the plan for you. I will help you discover the blind spots. This is my promise to you, but all you have to do is have the courage to send me an email, gene@genehammett.com. Inside that conversation, I will use some of the tools I've developed over the last 12 years to help people really move their leadership and evolve as leaders and grow their company strategically to that next level, whatever it is. I've worked with companies that are, growing to 10 million. I've worked with companies that are growing to 30 million, to 100 million and beyond. But I would love to help you. Just send me an email, gene@genehammett.com. Now, let's dive into the interview with Timothy Dodd at Pima.io. Timothy, how are you?
Doing great, Gene. What's going on, my man?
Excited to have this podcast today. We're going to have an incredible topic. And before we get into that, I'd love for you to tell us about your company, Pima.io.
Yeah, well, I'm just curious, are we gonna have tough conversations today, or is that just more for like the topic, but we're not actually gonna have tough conversations with each other today?
No,
Just
it's going to be very
want to
easy.
clarify real quick.
Yeah. Just
Okay,
no tough conversations.
okay, today it'll be after we record, and then we can get into it. Cool. So Pima.io, we are our clients hire us as an outsourced business development team. Think business to business companies, mostly mid-size enterprise type companies that have sales teams. They outsource their business development to us, and usually it's like on top of what they're already doing. And whether they're doing a few million a year as our smallest client or a few billion a year is kind of our bigger clients, and we just help them with lead generation and scaling their sales teams. And we're pretty involved into, we want to know the sales process pretty well, because if you just throw a company a bunch of meetings and they're not closing them, it kind of defeats the purpose. And so even though we're not like a sales training company, we're usually heavily involved in the whole process to make sure the leads we send people are actually closing.
Marketing is one of the hardest things to get right. It changes so fast, as you know. What worked 3 months ago may not work now as well as it did. What are you doing? What's the special sauce for Pima?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say that's true and it's not true. I'd say there is like principles that you could read Socrates in the way that he used questions to elicit responses, and certain human principles in psychology that will always be the same. Humans, the way that they respond to different things. There is different cycles that we go through when people get used to certain words or marketing angles that kind of wear out. You do have to present new angles, but generally you can go into the past and find angles that used to work, but they haven't been used for a while because they got burned out, and they kind of cycle through. So I'd say the principles are timeless. And if you're if you can just get super good at understanding human psychology and those never changing principles, like read modern day copywriting books with books like scientific advertising back in the 1920s mixed with like Socrates. There's a book on how he did his like Socratic. If you can just find those common principles, then all you got to do is figure out where the market's at, like cycle wise, the things that they're kind of burned out with hearing, and then what is a fresh perspective. That's really what allows you to endure through every like technology change or platform change. Because I think what shifts a lot is the platforms, the technologies, the loopholes, the algorithms. And those, yeah, you got to stay on top of. Like you just can't AI and all that stuff. Like, you got to stay on top of that. But the one thing that will be an asset through all of it, through every change for hundreds of years to come, if not, thousands of years, is understanding those basic principles of psychology for sure.
Well, Timothy, we're going to dive into our topic today, which is rebuilding from crisis. And I guess we'll just start right from the beginning. What kind of crisis did you have to rebuild from?
Well, we had built, so I had by myself, I'm pretty good at sales and marketing. I've just, because I was always an introvert, which I think introverts makes the best sales and marketing people because they get very good at just people watching and finding patterns and understanding, like, being observers of why do people respond positively and negatively one way or another. And so I got really good at communicating and marketing. I wasn't great at operations. I wasn't great at leadership. And so in 2018, Gene, I scaled the business to 243 monthly retainer clients for my agency in 18 months. So, it's that dream that everybody has where you're just like, I mean, it's a lot of freaking clients, right? And as you talk a lot about culture and leadership. It's what I found is building a company that fast and not understanding how to build culture is that culture, it is there and it grows and but if you're not intentionally building it, then it'll come, and all it takes is for one negative person to come in. They say like one sour apple will make the whole freaking bag of apples rotten. And I think that happened. I'm never blaming anybody else. I'm the one that hired everybody. I'm the one that didn't set values and set culture and all that. But we grew so dang fast, and I was just hiring college kids, and the culture got terrible and horrible. And we went from having an amazing product and great culture to having no culture and me hating work and like clients results declining to all of a sudden business crashing literally the week that I was on my freaking, like, the week of my wedding. I get married. We're a week, we take a week, we're on Miami Beach, and the business is like crashed. And Cindy doesn't know. I'm like, hey, she's like, I knew you were busy that whole week. And kind of the end of the week of our honeymoon, I'm like, hey, by the way, business crashed. And so that really came down to being really, good at sales and marketing, which is such a critical part of a company, and meaning well for the clients, but not doing a very good job at hiring, building culture, building systems, building processes, which that's, a lesson that was so freaking painful. I was, you kind of never want to go there again.
I want to go a little bit deeper into that because I get the fact that they had a bad apple, right? I call that a toxic employee, if you want to give it a short name
Sure.
for it. But it seems like your focus was not on the people in the company as it is today. So what were you focused on back then?
Well, I would say it like this. I was genuinely wanted to create an awesome company for awesome, the thought was, let me get these young people and I can mentor them and they're going to be hungry and they're going to want it. And so and I was getting some kind of coaching at that time, but it wasn't direct one-on-one. It wasn't leadership coaching. And so I had a lot of great intentions around wanting to build awesome culture and great team. But I didn't have the right blueprint. I didn't have the right mentorship, which I know you do a lot with people, Gene, which I think is incredibly valuable, obviously. But I didn't have the right leadership, mentorship, and all that stuff. And so the growth of the company it just became like a freaking train that it started going and going and going. And when it started going bad, I hired some wrong people. I didn't set the right standards. I let the wrong things slip. I put the wrong leadership in place. By the time this thing was going, it's like new clients coming in every day. I mean, imagine 18 months and 243 clients. It's like, boom, new client. And you don't want to stop that. And this is wrong. And it ended up just becoming like, I just didn't know how to build the company, like operationally and culturally. Not that I didn't want to or my focus was wrong, but it was just like, I didn't know how to, despite the efforts trying to do it.
Now, just a few minutes ago, Timothy said culture requires intention. If you want your culture to be better and stronger, you've got to be willing to ask your people what's getting in the way. You've got to be willing to survey them. You got to be willing to have the conversations. Sometimes they're hard conversations or tough conversations, but you've got to be willing to figure out what's standing in your own way. Now, if you're not sure where to start, then you can reach out to me. I'm happy to help you. Gene@genehammett.com. That's my email. I'd love to help you do that. But I will urge you again, if you want to change something, you've got to be willing to evolve as a leader, but also be intentional about what kind of culture you want to create and get really clear about that and communicate that more than you are comfortable doing. Because a lot of people said, I said it once. Why should I have to say it again? Because leadership requires you to over communicate, and that's a good thing. Back to Timothy. I know when you talk to our team, because we vet everyone that comes onto the podcast, we get pitched, 20, 30 times a day, sometimes people wanting to be on the show, but we really curate people like you, Tim. You talked about putting people first. When did you realize that you had to put people first to build the kind of culture that would navigate the turnaround in your company?
Well, I'd say it like this. I mean, I think a lot of times, anybody listening, an intention is great, but I had an intention to put my team and my employees first, and the first time around. What happened is when the business crashed in 2020, and I was just like, this is the worst thing ever, man. This is so tough. I just went from, dropping cash on the most beautiful wedding we've ever had, and money is just coming in, profits just coming in, to all of a sudden nothing. You're just a very, very, very tough place. And I'm laying in the bed, like, just, it was like I couldn't see anything. I'm a super happy guy. Even toughest times, I'm always happy. But I was depressed, man. And Cindy said about a week into this, she's like, "What if I helped?" And it was just like that it was like the depression lifted in a moment. I thought, like, oh my gosh, like Cindy's been COO stuff. She's worked with high net worth individuals. She knows how to run operations. And so that's kind of I'm getting to the point of this, is that Cindy and I, because it was from scratch. By the way, COVID was about to hit. So it's like that happened and COVID hit. Cindy and I are like, let's just build a company exactly around what we want it to be. So we spent the whole year building out what we want our culture to be. It started with 7 values. Now we're at 10. What's our mission? And then we built out like a legit entire culture, all the value structure, all of the mission, vision, values. And we said, what's the company that we want to show up to every single day? Like, what is the company value that we want to, like, who are the people we want to attract? Because we only want to attract the people that are aligned with our values. So we basically, because we got to start from scratch, we built the company just to be like aligned with our values. And then we kind of made the focus of like, hey, let's just hire, make decisions, and fire by these values, and just attract people that are kind of like crazy like us. And we kind of decided, we at that point, we're just going to build a company to serve us, and find people that also like share those same values. And that was kind of 2020. But then as we moved into 2021, it kept evolving, because we had a really good solid team, but it kept evolving. And that's where, we really made the difference of, what I mentioned to you before, is we don't build a company, right, Gene? Like we build people, and the people build the company. And so it was 2021 that we made the switch to not just having the culture and the mission, the vision, the values, but we actually started doing twice a month mentor meetings with all of our employees to go over their personal, professional, and financial goals, 1, 3, 5 years. And so we started attaching KPIs in the company for their role. Like, hey, you've got these 3 KPIs to be successful in your role. Oh, and by the way, if you hit them, you get this bonus. But then we started attaching all of those KPIs and bonuses to their personal goals, their professional goals, and their financial goals. And the moment we did that, our like the every individual person on our team, their performance like almost doubled. And so that's like a long story of how we built the culture and really thought about just like building and developing people. And man, we got one of the best teams in the biz I could ever imagine working in.
Timothy's been talking about values, and it's such an important aspect. I thought it would be my next book, but we end up doing the How to Have Tough Conversations book, which is the neon behind me, if you're looking at the video. But you want to make sure that your values are dialed in, because the values are a reflection of the owner and the executive leadership team, but they're also a reflection of what gets success in your company. They are not aspirational. Ideally, your values are who you are today, what makes up the identity and the personal traits of the company, what makes you guys successful, what's that special sauce, and putting it into short phrases that allow people to see it. And then once it's written down, you can see if they're in alignment or not. We're not just a good company. We're not just doing good work. Be specific with your values. If you want the play-by-play where I've already got this written down, I want to give it to you. All you have to do is send me an email, gene@genehammett.com, and put values, and I will be able to give you a training. I will be able to give you some specific details. I'll give you some tools that will really guide you through the process. And I do it all for free. All you have to do is send me that email, and I'm happy to help you. Now back to Timothy. Tim, so much in that to unpack. I want to switch gears a little bit, because I do believe in that foundation of the mission, vision, and values are so important. And a lot of people don't think about it because they like put their head down. It's like, let's just get the work done. Let's get the next client. But you build those tools, but your leadership had to change too. So
Sure.
when you think about rebuilding, from crisis, how did your leadership change over this time?
I mean, first word that comes to mind is equanimity, which just means when things are going awesome, you don't allow yourself to get too high and lifted on the wins and celebrate too much. You enjoy the wins, but you get back to it. And then when things get tough and low, you don't allow yourself to get too low. So it's like being able to stay stable. I would just say, just the same way that a freaking martial artist like bashes their shin on a wooden pole time after time until it's calloused so much that they could kick through 3 baseball bats. I think that's what a good leader does, is you go through so much challenges over and over again with a positive mindset, to the point where it's like when you have the right perspective, when challenges come, there's always like some solution or cool new idea that comes out from the other side, in my experience, to the point where you start to just not become numb to challenges, but you almost get excited when they happen, because you know that on the other side of the challenge, you individually as a leader are going to grow. But what's really cool is when you can then instill that with your team, where you're like, at our company, one of our sayings is, problems are opportunities. And the team is, in outreach marketing, my gosh, we do 5 million reach outs a month. We're getting meetings with like Fortune 500 CEOs and all that stuff's tough, man. And like you said before, one little platform change, one email change, one LinkedIn change, and it can like throw our whole world in disarray for like 3 weeks. But what our team has learned, and it's really cool to see as a leader, is that concept of problems are opportunities, is that when we frame the problems as, okay, what's the opportunity here? How do we respond the best? On the other side, we've always seen like we're a way better company today than we were 2 weeks ago before this problem happened. And I think the same thing is just for the leadership, right? Like, and you get punched enough in the face, you're like, oh, well, this is just part of the game. Like, you just kind of get used to it.
Yeah, I love the framing of that, problems or opportunities. I say something similar with my clients, so it does resonate deeply with me. you mentioned, Tim, too, about a toxic employee. And I think a lot of leaders listening in today have probably can relate to this. Usually toxic employees I've seen more times than not are actually high performers in some way. They could be a top salesperson. They could be very innovative. They could be very technical, whatever it may be. But yet their attitude is really poisoning the well of the people around them. And so did you actually end up having a tough conversation with that person?
No, with Pima 1.0, like our first one, no, I didn't have any tough conversations.
Well, now I wrote a book on tough conversations. Where do tough conversations fit into you building the kind of culture that you want as your company succeeds?
It's the same thing, right? Like it's like they're on the other side of a tough conversation when executed properly is um is a better relationship. Uh and it's in better and we're ruthless about if somebody is not aligned with our values. One of our values is people are our passion, so we'll bless them, we'll give them a recommendation somewhere else, but we are ruthless about if somebody's not aligned with the company, they're like literally we have a no gossip policy at our company. You can gossip if you want, you just can't do it here. So yeah, we'll have those tough conversations. And we're not mean, we're not rude, but we are ruthless to for the sake of our team. One of our vision is to be a vehicle for all of our team to hit their personal, professional, financial goals. So for me not to have a tough conversation, for me to want to just, oh, I just don't want to rock the boat and not do the necessary thing means that I'm compromising every personal, professional, and financial goal of everybody on my team. And so, yeah, those tough conversations are critical when you frame it properly to me having this tough conversation is me doing this for that person, because if I don't have this tough conversation, that person I'm actually shortchanging. I'm shortchanging my own goals. I'm shortchanging my family's goals and visions and everybody trusting in me. I'm changing my entire team. And by the way, you're probably shortchanging your clients too, because toxic employees create toxic culture and toxic culture creates a bad product. So yeah, tough conversations are something you should get good at easily having.
Now, Timothy's been talking about tough conversations, and he said something I want to highlight. On the other side of a tough conversation is better relationships. If you think about it, leadership is all about people, and people are about relationships. And if you want to have trust and you want to have collaboration, you want to have transparency, and you want to have people that are growing around you, you've got to be willing to have those tough conversations. That is my mantra behind this. Is one reason why I wrote the book. That's one reason why there's a neon sign behind me. That's one reason why I want to help you with your growing your business. And it starts with you having the right kind of tough conversations. This is a skill that you can get better at. Now back to Timothy. I appreciate that, and I agree with you. So, reflecting back on it, rebuilding from crisis, you
I think
weren't.
you're a little biased on that though. You kind of wrote the book
I'm
on it,
very
right?
biased. I have a hammer in my hand, and everything looks like a nail. But rebuilding from crisis was a partly, building a stronger structure that was much more intentional, but also you shifting your leadership in a big way, putting people first, being willing to have those tough conversations, and really protect the culture above anything else. Would you add anything to that as we wrap up today's conversation?
Yeah, I would say your goal has to be your like the where you're going, where this thing is headed, has to be so big and so inspirational that all of your team's goals can fit within that vision. Because if you're complaining about not being able to attract good talent, yet your vision is so small that great talent's vision can't fit within there, that's the problem. So if I have somebody that comes into my company and they're telling, they go, oh my gosh, they've got a huge goal. They want to be a freaking $2 million a year earner. Great. Awesome. I don't know how to do that yet, but let's get you there. Let's like figure out a way for you to add so much value every year to this company that I could give you $2 million a year. So I think it's like constantly setting up a vision so big that number one, like you're going to attract the right talent, but it's also got to be like something that people believe that you believe it, right? Because if it's so big that you're like, I hope we do it, then no one's gonna believe that you believe it. Like, our big, hairy, audacious goal. I think most of our team believes it by now because they've seen us go through so many challenge to victory, but they didn't believe it at first. Building this to $100 million a year plus company, they didn't believe it at first, but they believe that I believed it. And that was enough to get them on board for the vision. And that's just, it's just a milestone for us. But now, because they've seen us go through so many difficulties and they've seen us overcome, now the whole team believes. But I would say that's one thing is if your goal and your vision for your company is not big enough that all of your team's dreams and personal and professional goals can fit within it, like you're just never going to attract great talent, or you're going to get great talent that doesn't stick around for very long. But if you want the best of the best, you absolutely have to do that. You have to have a huge, huge goal, and you have to believe in it.
Tim, thanks for being here, talking about rebuilding from crisis and sharing your leadership wisdom in that journey.
Yeah, of course, Gene. Great having me on, man. It was great hanging out with you.
Great interview with Timothy. I really love him talking about rebuilding from crisis and about what it took. Putting people first is the key. He had to talk about the mission, vision, and values and be intentional about the leadership. That's very clear. But he also had to shift his style of leadership so that he was not just avoiding that toxic employee, but he was actually having the tough conversations. We talked a little bit about that. I wrote the book about tough conversations. So if you want to check out more of that, just go to wherever you buy books online, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, you got it. Tough Conversation, How to Have Tough Conversations is a book I'm really proud of to share with you. When you think of growth and you think of leadership, think of Growth Think Tank. As always, lead with courage. We'll see you next time.